Mock Draft Monday is back today on Locked On Chiefs. Time to start getting ready for the NFL Draft. Much more to come in the coming weeks. But today, let's take a look at what Kansas City could get done in the first 3 rounds in 2025.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Hey, Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back for another episode of Locked On Chiefs, your daily podcast covering the Kansas City Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for always making Locked On Chiefs your first listen of the day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube as well. I am Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. You can find me over there at Chiefs Corner. I have a little bit of information about the salary cap out over there. Going to start doing a little bit more mock drafts as we're getting closer to mock draft season. It is at that time of the year. We're going to get into a mock draft here in just a couple of minutes and look at the first 3 rounds. What can Kansas City get done with their first 4 picks? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look and see what it is that Kansas City can get done in this draft. We're going to look at the first 3 rounds again. We're going to make it a little bit slower, not full speed ahead. And we're going to look at the Chiefs for the first 3 rounds, picks 31, 63, 66, and 95. So what can Kansas City get done in those 4 picks? Let's take a look. And let's do this here. Here we go. And let's go ahead and start this. And I'm going to pause this when we get down to about 20-ish. Here we go. So we're sitting at 20. And at this point, you're in a scenario where you have Walter Nolan was taken. You have Miko Williams was taken right before him. Malachi Starks, a safety. Shemar Stewart, an edge from Texas A&M. But you still have a couple of guys that I guarantee you Kansas City fans would be interested in. Luther Burden is still sitting out there. At that point, you have a lot of the tackles still sitting out there. So I do think that this is a good position for Kansas City. I don't think they'll obviously be trading with the Los Angeles Chargers. So let's resume it and pause it again. And now they're down to the Texans. Okay, so Josh Simmons just went. Kelvin Banks Jr. went at 22. Now you're sitting at the Texans. I don't think that they'd I don't think they trade with the Texans, but I do think that they could be looking at trading with the Rams. So what is available? What could Kansas City be looking for in this draft? Where would they be looking? Let's offer a trade to get up to 26. And to do that, we will need to trade away 31. Obviously, they won't do that. Let's try 133. And it looks like that could possibly be accepted. And that was not accepted. Try one more time. All right. So for 31 and 133, we get the 26th pick. So now if we resume the draft, and looks like Luther Burden is still sitting there from Missouri. This would be a lot of Chiefs fans' dream come true. You have Colston Loveland still sitting there. The reason I traded up, though, is I do think that I know the Ravens just signed Ronnie Stanley Jr., but it is possible they would want to get younger at the tackle position overall, and they could be looking at a guy like Josh Conerly. To me, I do think that this is the direction Kansas City will look. If he's still sitting here at 31, I think they will be looking to try to trade up and see if they can get him. So I would be looking at Josh Conerly Jr. There's a lot of people out there that would love to get Luther Burden in a Kansas City uniform. I get it. I don't know that they would go. It's so hard because you look at this and he's ranked 14th and Luther Burden is ranked 14th. According to PFF, obviously these are not real grades, so we'll see what other people think and how things could turn out. But wide receiver is a position I think you have to feel pretty good about in the 2025 season. You have Rashee Rice that will be back from injury. Yes, he's going to be on suspension for a couple of games, but he'll be back. You have Hollywood Brown coming back. You have Xavier Worthy. You have Juju Smith-Schuster. I think you have to feel pretty good at the wide receiver position. I'm not thinking that they're going to go trade up to go get a guy like Luther Burden. What I do think is that they would be looking at trying to trade up to go get a tackle that they feel can step in and be their left tackle of the future. Josh Conerly Jr. makes a lot of sense from that perspective. And at this point, I would say that this is going to be their pick. He's a guy that I think can step in and play for the first 5 seasons, no problem. And then you're going to be in a scenario where you probably re-sign him and he could be your left tackle for quite some time. I understand they just signed Jalen Moore to a contract, it's not prohibitive from them making another type of move. And maybe Conerly is a guy that would come in and not start year one, but start year two. I would be okay with that. That's not the best situation for taking a first round pick, but it's not horrible because you are competing for a Super Bowl. You do not want to be in a situation where your line causes an issue again. So I do think that that's possible that Kansas City would be looking at that direction. And so I think I have to go offensive tackle at this point, and Conerly makes a ton of sense for me. So I'm going to go and draft Josh Conerly Jr., offensive tackle for the Chiefs with their first round pick. All right, so that's done. I'm going to go and pause it as we wait for them to come back up at 63. And when we get back, we're going to talk about what they could possibly do in the next 2 picks, because they have 2 picks within 4 picks in the second and third round, and that's going to be right after this. Have you ever checked your online bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's very easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now, I budget smarter and I save much more. I absolutely love Monarch Money. It's something I've been using for months, and I really enjoy the ability to look every day where my finances are, where my budget is, where my bills are coming due, and what my net worth is on a daily basis. It tracks all of your investments and everything all in one place. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track and share personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. That's $200 to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and several different game props you can choose from. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. To me, you already addressed the offensive tackle position. So to me, I think that obviously your biggest need is probably interior defensive line. You have Shemar Turner standing right there waiting for you to take him. You have a linebacker in Demetrius Knight. Linebacker, I think you have to feel pretty good about. A second round pick. I think you're going to want somebody that can step in and at least be a rotational guy year one. I don't see that necessarily being the case because Kansas City only uses 3 linebackers, and most of the time there's only 2 on the field. So I don't see a reason to go that direction. To me, I also don't think you're going to be looking at tackle. You've already taken your 1 tackle. You've got a couple of corners that are possibly on this list that you could maybe look at. And don't forget, I mean, we're looking at a situation where they pick twice in 4 picks. So more than likely, most of the guys that we're talking about right now are still going to be available when they come back up at 66. So for me, I'm sitting here looking at this and I'm going, okay, defensive tackle is probably the direction I want to go. I could also look at defensive end. That would not be something that I would be opposed to necessarily. I don't think that that's the direction that they really want to go, but considering they have these 2 picks here, it's possible. Corner is also a possibility. They signed Christian Fulton to a 2-year deal. Trey McDuffie is still under contract for probably another 2 seasons. I do think that they still want to get better at that position. And maybe if somebody fell into their laps at the corner position, they could look at that. I just don't think that they're going to do that with a second-round pick. And I definitely don't think they're going to be looking at a running back in the second round. I think that Kansas City took Clyde Edwards-Helaire a couple of years ago in the first round, didn't work out, and I don't think that they will be doing that again. I think they see the value at that position and they're more than likely going to wait and take a running back a little bit later in the draft, maybe the 5th round or 6th round. They don't have a 4th round pick in this scenario, so they wouldn't be able to do that unless they trade back up. So what do I think that they would do in this scenario? I'm going to go ahead and go with Shemar Turner. I think the defensive tackle makes a ton of sense. Not necessarily going to be a guy that you're going to be able to plug and play and step in day one, but I do think that it's possible he could start day one. The defensive tackle group in Kansas City isn't great behind Chris Jones, so it wouldn't shock me if he steps in and starts day one. But it is a pick that I think gives them versatility, gives them the ability to get better at that defensive tackle position. So I'm going to go ahead and take Shemar Turner. And they are right back on the clock. That linebacker is still sitting there looking at them in the face. I still don't think they're going to go that direction. And now you're starting to talk about, okay, tackle, they've already addressed. They've already addressed the 2 running backs, or they've already addressed, running back in free agency with Elijah Mitchell, Kareem Hunt, they have back. I don't think that they'll be looking at running back in the second. And basically, this is a 3rd round pick at this point. It's the 2nd pick in the 3rd round at 66. So I don't think they'll be looking at running back here. To me, I think that you could still be looking interior defensive line. I think that is a huge position of need for this team. So it would not shock me if they go that direction. They could also look at it. All right. So when we start looking at this, where could the Chiefs go? I do think that they're not going to be looking at probably the tackle position. I don't think they'll look at linebacker or running back at this point. Edge could possibly go that direction. I don't think that that's the way that they would really go. I don't like the tight end fits here at this point. You're not really going to be dealing with somebody I think that has the upside of being a potential tight end 1. They already have a tight end 2 in Noah Gray. You have Jared Wiley from last year, so I don't think that unless somebody dropped that they don't expect to be here, that they would go this direction or go that direction. So I do think that when you start looking at this and you start looking at the value that's still here, I don't love where Kansas City is in this. I would almost rather trade back and try to get more picks, but I'm not going to do that because that is something where I don't know that you would also get the value at that point. You have a pick this early. It's basically almost a 2nd round pick, considering it's the 2nd round of the 2nd pick of the 3rd round. So to me, I think that I'm going to look at this and go, okay, what do they need? What have they needed their entire draft? They've needed defensive tackle and offensive tackle. Already got a defensive tackle, already got an offensive tackle. I'm doubling up. I'm going to go Joshua Farmer, and I'm going to draft another defensive tackle to put in there with Chris Jones, put in there with everybody else that they have. They just re-signed Mike Pennell. I think that could be something that, you look at the future and they need defensive tackle depth. They need young guys at that position. So I'm going to go ahead and draft Joshua Farmer from Florida State. Gives them a 2nd defensive tackle in this draft and 2 back-to-back. And I'm going to go and pause it right here. And when we get back, we're going to talk about what they could possibly be looking at 95. Lots of different things that they could possibly do at 95, but they have definitely fixed their tackle position on both the offensive side and defensive side, in my opinion, with these first 3 picks. And we will talk more about it, everything else that they can do in the 3rd round at pick 95 right after this. Okay, so now you're sitting here. You have pick 95. You were still 12 picks away. I'm not going to bother trying to trade. I'm just going to resume the draft, get it back down to where Kansas City is actually picking. And here we sit with Kansas City picking at 95. And you have some interesting names here. You have a wide receiver. You have a couple of safeties. Still don't think that they would double up at the offensive tackle position. Juwan Taylor is not going to be going anywhere. I think that they probably feel pretty good about Ethan Driscoll, so I don't think that they would be doubling up at that position. They've already got their starter at left tackle this year so far. You have an edge in David Walker. Could they look at a running back? I think that they possibly could. I'm not going to say that I expect them to, but they could possibly look at a running back at this position, just because at this point at 95, you're basically talking about it almost a 4th round pick. So that would make a little bit of sense if they find somebody that fell that they didn't expect to be there, that they have a higher grade on. I don't know that I really think that they're going to go that direction, but there are a couple of different things that they could do here at 95. You've already addressed tackle. You've already addressed defensive tackle. What else could they be looking? So this is where it's going to get interesting. They've already addressed the tackle position, offense and defense. Talked about that. Could they do a wide receiver here? I'd say it's possible. I don't think that Savion Williams really fits what they want to do at the wide receiver position. He doesn't really fit the general position that they bring into Kansas City. So that move would not make sense to me. Ransom is a more of a strong safety type from Ohio State. Mukuba, I think, is a possibility. He's more of a true free safety, which is definitely something that they need. Again, I don't think that they're going to be looking at the tackle position. We already kind of talked about that. I don't think that they'll be looking at a guy like Damian Martinez. If they're going to be looking at a running back, it would be somebody that they think can play all 4 downs, all 3 downs, and be a pass blocker that can stay on the field to replace Isaiah Pacheco after this coming year. I don't think that Martinez is that guy. Sebastian Castro is another option. I don't see them looking at another tight end, considering they took, a tight end in the 3rd round last year, and Jared Wiley didn't play much because he got hurt. So I don't think that they're going to be looking in that direction. And then Tez Johnson, don't really see them going that way either. So when we look at this, to me, again, I don't necessarily really like where things are lying with the Chiefs at this pick. I don't love how they are set up for this pick. I do think that it would be better if there was some other positions, maybe a couple of wide receivers that would fit their mold a little bit better than what is on here right now. But to me, I think that when you start looking at what Kansas City needs, they have basically the same guys that came back at the safety position outside of Justin Reed. So they're going to need to make an addition at that position. I would not be shocked if they go and draft a guy like Andrew Mukuba and they let Jaden Hicks go be a starter. They let Cook be a starter, and Mukuba becomes your 3rd safety that comes off the bench and becomes maybe your free safety, and you start moving Jaden Hicks around and letting him play all the different types of roles. And Mukuba can do some of that too. So I do think that it would make a lot of sense for them to go safety and continue to build on the defensive side of the ball. So that is what I'm going to do with this pick. At that point, here we are, and this is what we have draft-wise. Not bad when you start looking at the grades. I think that I feel pretty good about the Josh Conerly Jr. pick. I don't think that he would have been there at 31, so I think that that's good value. You gave up a 4th-round pick and you gave up just the 4th-round pick to get him. So I think that that's a pretty good value to get your left tackle of the future. I think that Conerly can be that. So that move makes a ton of sense for me. That fills their biggest need because protecting Patrick Mahomes is always going to be their biggest need. This would do that for sure. Shemar Turner, I think that that's a pick that you start looking at the defensive interior and you say, okay, we need to get younger at that position. We need to get better at that position. We need to add guys that can try to get after the passer and still stop the run at the same time. So I think that you go back-to-back picks on defensive tackle. I don't love that. I don't think that there's a all-time ton of value in doing that because that's still a position that's not necessarily considered one of those premium positions. But when you look at the depth that they have at that position, it's Chris Jones. They now have Mike Pennell. They don't really have anything. They lost Turk Wharton. He's gone. He got a big contract elsewhere. So they don't really have something that can step in and really help at that position. So I'm doubling up and taking Turner and Farmer with those 2 picks. And then coming back in the 3rd round, and I'm going to go Andrew Mukuba from Texas. And at this point, I think that that's just a move that's based on the way that the draft fell. This is kind of what I would think about. I don't love that pick because I would have liked to have gone a different position. I do think Kansas City is going to try to take another wide receiver in the top 3 rounds. I think they're going to try to do that just about every single season. I just didn't really think that the value was there at those positions. So that's why I went safety, and this is what I got as my draft. I still feel very comfortable with it. I think that if you look at this overall, it takes your 2 biggest needs and it fills them, and it gives you an extra bonus player to fill that the absolute biggest need at defensive tackle, because I think that is their biggest weakness right now. You have a guy that can start in more. Whether or not you believe he's going to be your future is one thing, but you have a guy that can start in more. Conerly may end up being a backup in 2025. That's fine. If he can come in and play and give you a cheaper option in 2026 and be your starter going forward, that's still a great pick for Kansas City. And getting Turner and Farmer, if they can come in and give you a rotational help at the defensive tackle position this year and take over and start giving Chris Jones some somebody to rush the passer with from the interior. I think that that's a big win for Kansas City. So I like both of those picks. I do think that it's going to be something that they need to look at both. They need to look at taking two defensive tackles in this draft to get the youth there, to get guys that they like, and to help fill out that position. Whether or not they take them back to back in the second and third round, that's a pretty big investment, but it wouldn't shock me considering they haven't really invested in that position for a couple of years at this point in the draft, at least. And then you're looking at Andrew Mukuba as being your last pick in the third round. Pick 95 can come in, be a free safety. Maybe he doesn't start year one. Maybe he's a guy that comes in, plays that third safety role, and they let Brian Cook walk in the offseason. And then you have Mukuba and Jaden Hicks as your starters going forward. Lots of different ways that could go possibly. But I do think that Kansas City really likes to be able to do lots of different things with their safeties. And I think that this would give them the ability to do that. So I am going to be curious to see what Kansas City can do in this draft. I'm really looking forward to talking about the draft a lot more in the coming weeks because it is draft season right now. And I cannot wait for the NFL draft, which is a little bit over a month away at this point as this is coming out. So be sure to keep it here on Locked On Chiefs. We will have you covered. We cover your team every single day. Thank you all for listening today, and we will be back to talk to you tomorrow.